This conference will now be recorded.
Join the party.
Nice cup.
I'll call the meeting to order. Is there any amendments to the agenda?
No.
All right, is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion, if not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, carries. Approval of the minutes from 9:14.
We approve the minutes as printed.
Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, carries. It's it's about 5:35, isn't it?
I have 5:32 on my phone. Maybe that one's a little fast.
Well, let's go to old business then, new business, 6A.
Okay, so we're getting towards the season of looking towards finalizing something like our fees for next year. And so what I have done is I tried to look at regionally other planning departments' fees. Also pulled up the county. So there's Lake City, Cannon Falls, Pine Island, and Goodhue. Wabasha wasn't able to get back to me. But as you can see, not everybody has the same exact verbiage of what they call each fee either. So I tried formatting it into a matrix, because what I did was I printed off or received, this is everybody's fees, and I didn't want to give everybody a Bible of fees. So I tried putting it all together. And so what I would like to do, and I was speaking with Kim earlier, is I think what we should do is think about what we'd like for fees. We have time to finalize what we want our fees to be for next year. So maybe if something we finalize next month and sleep on it type of deal, but I hope this helps. My recommendation would be to either leave them be the same and or increase them, because on average, we're just a little bit below some of our competitors. We're higher than some in some areas and lower than others in others. Another discussion popped up with an interesting angle towards accruing fees is some cities have escrow accounts depending on the type of development project that happens. So for example, you can look at Cannon Falls or Lake City for something like a preliminary plat. Let's take Cannon Falls, for example. Their application is $500, ours is $200, but they require a $2,500 deposit just for the surety of it happening, and it's refundable once the project commences, but it's skin in the game, so to say. And I don't believe, unless correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if we've ever done that, but everybody does it a little differently. Pine Island just has $3,000 for their preliminary plat, and nobody gets that money back, but it's something to think about. There's a lot of, I think it's one of those things where we could talk about it for 5 minutes or an hour, or we could think about it and finalize it next month. Like I said, we have time, but it's something to consider because we're in that season. Yep. I don't know if it's happened here, but
I don't recall
Well,
it.
the only one I can think of a developer who kept saying they were going to do stuff and didn't do stuff and didn't do stuff. We did make them put down a
Oh, you're-
$10,000 building permit deposit.
Tier 1?
Can you give us what we raised it from last year? So I think it was last year.
It went up about, I believe for most of those, we rate went up about $100. There was 2 years ago.
Was it 2 years back?
Yeah, it was at least 2 years ago.
Were you here? Okay, yeah.
I'll look into previous
And I'm
years.
okay with this, what Kim said, that we went up $100 because
I'm allowed.
my philosophy, my personal philosophy is I don't want to be the highest, but we need to be in the game.
My thoughts exactly.
I don't want to price people out, because if we're going to find a calendar, there's some road of 1,500, 1,200. But by looking at this, we're not in the game on some of them. So, and that's, do we double it? No, do maybe $1,500 this year to do the same thing in 2 years or whatever. That's my personal philosophy. On any fees when it comes to the city, so I know there's a lot of fees that we are behind with comparables, or we haven't raised the fee in 20 years or ever. So that's kind of my take on all the fees.
I agree. The more I thought about it, it seemed pretty cut and dry at first, but the more I thought about it, the more I think we should all think about it, because I believe if everybody offers perspective, we can go forward with
It
it.
have to be related to staff time, so I imagine there's a lot more time spent on developing a preliminary plat, working with a developer on that than doing a minor subdivision or maybe,
Use permit or something. So you
Yeah.
cut and dry.
yeah.
But if you look at the other cities, we're still significantly behind. But you look at Lake City, and I think, wow, I mean, they're really behind.
Yep.
Especially the way they're growing. And I mean, I would say, I don't think that a person would do something because it's $50 cheaper, $200 cheaper than other cities.
And are those fees also taken into account, publishing?
No. So those are usually under administrative. So I think that would be something the city
So,
council would.
I mean, if publishing is included as well as that, then I think a very good argument to be made that the current fee does not cover the.
Are we getting a lot of siding permits or roofing permits? For instance, somebody on Lancaster is doing siding and roofing now. Is it common that it's getting done?
I would say, yeah, those would fall under our flat fee schedule.
Yeah.
So at the bottom, and this kind of printed off weird now that I'm looking at it. So I don't know if everybody can see, but this is what we deal with for development, the first third, let's say it, and even though it's more than a third, but the first section, let's call it. The second section is, I'll call it unique fees that we don't have that other cities do. Like if somebody wants to amend our comprehensive plan, for example, Pine Island charges $600, Lake City $250, Cannon Falls $450, we charge $0. We don't have the ability to do it, or we just do it
What's
for
an
free.
example? I mean,
If they want to add verbiage or a new page, or felt like we missed something in a comprehensive plan,
The city's comprehensive?
correct, which that would come before this committee or commission.
Which then would come.
Correct. But there's other things like, zoning review, environmental assessments. Otherwise, there's an appeal. We don't have formalities in our planning and zoning ordinances surrounding how to appeal a decision. I think you just can't. So there's things like that. But to Kim's point earlier too, some other things that are left out is, let's take a plat or a minor subdivision. A lot of these are $250 plus a $50 charge, for example, per lot. And that's the same for other cities, but we were lower on those too, so I just left it out. Otherwise, this would just be jumbled with a bunch of, I try to keep it as simple as possible. But to her point, there's publishing fees, like some cities charge $1 for a piece of paper. We charge, I think, 10 cents, but most cities file them under C, administrative department categories. So then this list would be double as long if I started going with asterisks and other departments. But and then to your point earlier, Todd, too, I don't want to spur development. So I like being competitive. But I agree, I'd rather be in the middle than on the lower end, because when we're talking about a preliminary plat, like a subdivision of a dozen homes, what's $250 or $500 to a developer for the time spent in reviewing it in comparison to what Matt said earlier when it comes to a minor subdivision. If somebody wants to draw a line in the sand in their yard, do we want to charge them $500 or $200? I don't really care. $200 is fine with me on that one, but or $250 what it is now, but
But it's the same thing as when they file for the permit, you have time, Kim has time, Ren has time, Matt
Yep.
has time, depending on what it is. We gotta put a value on that. Our building inspector probably has the biggest time in this then when we're reviewing the plat or the drawing.
Would it be even possible if you do it, how many hours of staff time for each of those categories, you permit, it's 40 staff hours or 100 staff hours?
without going through it all. Well, first of all, I haven't been through every one of these, for example. So for me, I would have to backlog and then compare as references keep coming.
When's
Otherwise,
the deadline? When do we have
December 1st, January 1st, we do accept the fee schedule at the council
the
level.
first one of the?
So the planning and zoning would need to recommend. in
First
December.
meeting in December,
And then
go
there's,
to council, the
yes.
third one, and then we'll.
Yeah.
so that's why I put this in, let's call it new business, because most like, I would recommend it being tabled just to think about, because we have time. But I mean, there's-
I also think we should, we technically have 2 meetings to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's one of those things, we need to start dropping maybe numbers down,
sure.
or we could just plan on having a bigger meeting or a longer meeting next month and just hear the fees. And then we can approve it on the 1st of December and the council. on the 3rd.
All right, we'll revisit it next meeting.
Come with your ideas.
We'll go back to 4A, public hearing on minor subdivision. What do you have there, Dylan?
All right, so last month, an application came in for this minor subdivision. It's at 612 St. Paul Road. The property owners, Mark Mangan, and his representatives, Travis Goodman, filled out the application. The request stems from the owner wanting to sell a portion of his land and keep the remaining portion that has the fixtures on it. If you're familiar with the property, there's some large pole sheds that are used for storage. There's a certificate of survey attached to it as well, or the packet I've given you, and a legal description, but that one's less fun.
Right now, it's all one parcel.
Correct. So what's being applied for a minor subdivision is one parcel. The property owner owns other pieces of land nearby and touching it, but those are not under consideration here. The original plan was to apply for this minor subdivision because he wanted to sell it to a developer that had a purchase agreement in hand, but it's a little bit simpler now because that one's no longer happening. So, no,
Because of this,
yep.
you want that.
Yeah, well, the problem, not the problem, the opportunity here is that it's a huge piece of land on the river. That's nice. Being on the river, it's in the floodplain. If I showed the floodplain map, you could cut this parcel in half of what's buildable acreage. And the best acreage is the one with the fixtures on it. So if that's out of the equation, it made the decision simpler for them. But so, we had a public hearing last month about the annexation. This one's similar in the sense that our recommended approval or denial is based upon what we have right here. It's different from last month's public hearing in the sense that this one's a lot simpler. I don't have no cheat sheet for minor subdivision. It's somebody wants to put a line throughout their parcel and it doesn't, our ordinances on minor subdivisions is about this long, you know what I mean? As opposed to annexation can be a tome book. But he has all the necessary documents in. I have the certificate of survey, the legal description. The minor subdivision applies via section 6, subdivision 1, letter B, in the case the request to divide a lot on a larger tract of land and thereby creating no more than 2 lots.
Question for Matt. For a crazy question, let's just say they would current owner wants to sell parcel A, and the new owner wants to buy parcel B, could they build a property, apartment complex on both properties without getting one parcel? Would they have to combine that again?
Recombine A and B?
Yeah, let's just say they buy A and B.
Uh-huh.
And the new people want to build an apartment complex on A and B, do you have to make that one parcel, or can they still leave it two parcels with the building on both?
For tax purposes, you can't build across property lines.
So they would have to go back to one?
Probably, if they're,
Building code purposes too, you can't build across the property line.
But that
I'm
would,
just using what would
Yeah.
possibly could happen and could come back again.
correct.
That if somebody that works out or whatever, which
Yep.
they will, but I'm just, they would have to make it one parcel again for tax.
They'd
They want to
basically,
build an apartment.
they'd take these steps to replat the property.
and we'd probably require it. They'd come in with a design plan and we'd say, well, you can recombine these parcels.
Is eBay still renting that building? correctly?
Yeah, that was the holdup. It wasn't just any type of sentimental value towards the buildings. It was a contractual obligation for, leasing it for storage.
Why don't I open the public hearing? Anybody have any comments? Any comments from the public? I'll close the public hearing. Let's go to five B then. What's the wishes of the commission? So that the house, that's already a separate tax parcel, right, off to the southeast?
Correct. He doesn't
Okay.
own that property.
He doesn't, okay.
Well, that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Just a single family house.
And this is, what's the zoning there again, remember?
So that is I-1 industrial. It's surrounded by R2.
The house R2?
Yeah. Yep, the house would be R2.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing, say he sold this to a developer who wanted this, that, or the other thing, or somebody just wanted to build one house. They'd have to come before us for a rezone application, or if they wanted 3 houses, they'd have to plat the property. And, but would be another public hearing.
Has there been any discussion on a expanded commercial use across the road? I would imagine the neighbors on the south side of St. Paul Road might not appreciate that, but if that's the way it's zoned.
Well, the entirety of the south side minus the corner here is R2 as well.
Yeah.
So it's R2, 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 and then industrial, and then this is industrial.
Yeah.
I mean, it fits the nature of the land too, for a house or 2 houses or 3 houses, whatever the next person wants. When you have a local real estate brokerage involved with filling out the application, I expect there to be some sort of plat process coming up soon. And I don't know whether they put 2 houses or 3 houses or 4 houses. They have about 500 feet from the proposed subdivision line to the end. And for R2, you only need a 60-foot frontage. So
How would parcel A be used then, right now?
he wants to keep it, like I said, what I believe, this is an assumption too. I wish he was here so he could talk more about it, but he has a lease with Zumbrota Tribe Train for using it for storage that he needs to keep it.
Okay. So the possible motion to recommend approval to council, is that what we're looking for maybe?
Seems pretty cut and dry. I don't see any problems with it, part of the city as far as maintenance or anything of the road. If I would move, we approve for recommending for approval.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain, carries. And we're down to 6B. The ARPA committee.
Yep, so ARPA is the American Rescue Plan Act. And as a city, we've formed a committee to oversee the distribution of our own allocation of these ARPA dollars. Brian, what's the total number? Is it 370?
Yep.
375? So as a city, we've gotten 375 in 2 increments. We've received the first half of it. The second half, we won't receive till next year or something along those lines. I put this under business for us because this is another homework assignment. I'm giving you guys a lot of homework this meeting. If you have anything that you could recommend with the hats that you wear, or the things that you hear in the community, feel free to email me. Jennifer is also on this committee too, so we have 2 of us being able to voice opinions, but I just listed out 2 of the things as examples of what this money can be spent on, because Todd and Brian and Jennifer can attest that it's a weird deal with you get money and you can spend it on some things but not others. But anyways, some examples. There's a League of Minnesota Cities Codification Service, which is recommended currently amongst other examples because it would update our ordinances. And some of our ordinances, and you guys might have become familiar with this during the transition of permitting to the building official. There's a lot of ambiguity and gray areas, let's say, with our ordinances, just because some of them haven't even been looked at, touched, or amended decades. So it'd be of interest to have those updated at some point in time. And so it's listed at $800.
$800.
Correct. But that, I believe, in reading into it, is to adopt, like say you're a newly incorporated city, $800 you can get planning and zoning ordinances. They're very basic, generic, let's say. I believe it'll be to the tune of a couple $1,000s, because what I've read is they'll take ours, use theirs, and make a new one. So there's probably some time commitment, but still, depending on what the cost is.
Haven't we paid 10 grand before?
I'm not sure.
To some company.
See,
Were you here?
I don't think it was after I started.
Yeah. Okay.
so I don't even know the reference of mine of how often you should update ordinances on a wide scale, let's say, because obviously you should update them as they come to be problematic. But if they, sounds like before Kim got here, 15 years ago. And was that a widespread ordinance cleanup type of deal?
Yeah.
So anyways, that's just an example, just to relate an example from them. Another one is our Goodhue County GIS user group. And to explain that one, it would aid multiple departments with their jobs. So for example, it would give us maps of our city services in an up-to-date fashion. For us, I have a zoning map in my office. It's the biggest map in my office. It has been updated in, I believe, 2017, so 4 years. So we've annexed parcels have rezoned, subdivisions, replatting. We don't have an updated version of what our city looks like. And this is an up-to-date every day. Any user, the public, we can all go on it. It does. So I'll call it the city service map, the rezoning map, all this development application. It's just up-to-date information.
I like that.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. Yeah,
That monthly fee or yearly fee, or that just a one time and then update it?
it's a yearly fee of $3,300. And then I think they make you sign on for the first 2 years, so it's 66 or something. But for example, so this is the minor subdivision we talked about application. I do nothing with this besides store it. I believe under joining this user group, which most cities in Goodhue County are already a part of. We declined the offer a few years ago. I would send this to them and then they would draw the line in the sand. But what we do as a city now is I'm going to have to contact Mark or Travis to go down to the recorder's office to file the recording for themselves. And then I have to wait for that. And I don't get any notification of when this line comes into the GIS. I just have to keep looking and wait for it to pop up. But it makes us more involved and gives us more ability to see what's going on and have up-to-date information. So those are the 2 examples that I would say are direct effect to the Planning Commission. So, but if you have any other suggestions too, so reach out to me.
How long do we have to spend this money? Is there a deadline on it?
4 years.
We have to have it allocated 4 years, and we have 6 years to spend. It looks like codification, the ordinance thing every 10 to 15 years, so we're probably right on time to do it or a little past. It was 04.
Yeah, I think we've just done minor things that we're doing along. But not.
But it has to do it too.
Yeah.
Remember when that came up with the blue binder, that was
I
a
did update.
comprehensive review. What's that? Okay.
I can look back possibly and see if I can find it. I'll look.
But that's the other thing to Brian's point is, whether it was 5 years ago or 15 years ago, there's ARPA monies now. So it's an opportunity at hand.
Comments on that?
We got 375, did most of the communities not get that number, or?
It was based on population.
Population.
Oh, it's based on population.
What did Rochester get?
Something like that, yeah, some huge number. The county got like 9 million as well. We've counted. And we're gonna look to partner with them with some things possibly, to combine dollars. Townships got less, but they still have got quite a bit too. So, it was roughly double what we got last time. Not quite double, but that's through the community and municipality, or each community and township.
What are other examples of proper use that you've learned?
Anything touched.
Yeah, anything touchless. So most communities, because of the reporting issues, I don't know if they're issues, but the ease of reporting, a lot of communities are putting most of their money into infrastructure projects. Water district, fixing up some outdated infrastructure. Water, yeah. And that's even important. But yeah, then there's technology. We're looking at doing the financial software that we need. We want to get in the cloud and lots more capability. A lot of communities are doing that. Some of the bigger communities that, that $9 million, they're running grant applications to get money out to businesses and things like that. I don't know if we have enough to run a sophisticated grant operation, but that's one of the things we're looking at is we may funnel some money to the EDA to get out to businesses and startups and things like that. Kind of a wide array. We were led to believe it was wide open going into this, and then Kim and I went to a meeting and we came out about cheaper. You can't spend.
You can't spend on anything.
Yeah. And now there's a 2-page category sheet that you have to fit every thing you spend has to fit into one of those categories. So when Kim does the report, it needs to fit in there somewhere. So we're kind of using that as a guide.
I don't want to go to jail.
Who made up the rules? That's my question.
Federal?
Yeah, they're the ones arguing now about the, yes, that crew.
Yeah, exactly. All right, go to 7A then. What do you have for A, B, and C there, Dylan?
So these are reports. I just want to report that based on our recommendation last month for the annexation, that the council also recommended approval of the annexation. Now it's off to the state for review. Yep. And it's probably been the thing that I've worked on the longest since I've been here, because I mean, even though it's been a month since we approved it, I was on the phone for 2 or 3 calls and emails every day because the state has.
Does 400 cover your time then?
No, I would never do it again for 400, but I don't even get that. Yeah, but it's off to the state for review, so that's just an update on the annexation. Another report is the future Christ Lutheran School. I mentioned last month that we had met with representatives of Christ Lutheran Church here in town and how they have plans to build a new school out on the east side of town. We just had a meeting this morning at 7 a.m., Brian, Todd, and I. And just to update, what we talked about was, we'll call it city responsibilities for the new development. There's not much else to update as of now, but it's on a I'll call it progress by progress basis. The next step we're going to do is meet with some property owners nearby because there could be some usage of their land. And then the final report is just a building permit report. So Q3 just ended at the start of this new month, and there was 58 building permits for this past quarter, and that's 18% higher than the previous quarter. That is it.
You remember where we're at for the year? Compared to last year, was that the year?
I started looking into last year, but last year is, I'll say, let's not compare anything to last year. Last year was just down across the board. Because I first looked at last year and compared quarters and I thought, oh, we're doing so great. But then I remembered probably not much happened in comparison last year. But I looked at 2019 and we're pretty comparable to 2019. It was about 51 for this past quarter and we're at 58. I didn't look at other quarters, but we had more this past quarter than the quarter before, which I would have thought that Q2 would have been the biggest quarter for building permits.
Well, unless anybody has anything else, I'll adjourn. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Hey, Thomas.